At some point in life, many men make a quiet decision. Not the kind you announce, not the kind anyone else even notices at first. Just a slow internal turning toward stillness, toward fewer voices, toward mornings that belong only to themselves. And if you've ever watched an older man choose that kind of life and wondered what happened to him, I want to tell you what actually happened. Because I am that man now, and the answer is not what most people assume. People assume something went wrong, a loss, a falling out, a bitterness that curdled into withdrawal. And yes, some of that is true for some men, but that's not the whole story, and it's not mine. My story is quieter than that, and I think more honest. Because the truth is that solitude, real solitude, the kind you choose with open eyes and a full heart, is not the absence of connection. It is a different kind of it. I spent most of my life surrounded by people. Work pulled me in every direction. Meetings, obligations, the relentless social current of raising children, maintaining friendships, and being present for a family that needed presence. I was not unhappy. I want to be clear about that. I loved much of it. But I also spent decades in rooms where I performed a version of myself that was agreeable, available, and endlessly patient with noise I had no real use for. I smiled at jokes that weren't funny. I sat through conversations that had nothing to say. I showed up to gatherings that left me emptier than before I arrived, and I told myself that was just what life was. By the time I was in my mid-60s, something had shifted without my permission. I noticed it first in the way I felt driving home from social events. Not relief exactly, but something close to it. A loosening in my chest. A return to something. And I started to ask myself what that meant, honestly, without rushing to reassure myself that I was fine and normal and not becoming strange. What it meant, I eventually understood, was that I had been spending energy I no longer had in unlimited supply. When you are young, social energy replenishes quickly. You give it away freely because the reserves seem bottomless. But at 70, you begin to feel the weight of every unnecessary exchange. Every conversation you have is out of politeness rather than genuine interest. Every evening you spend being entertained rather than resting. Every relationship you maintain is out of habit rather than meaning. And you start to ask, quietly and without malice, whether you can afford to keep doing that with whatever time you have left. That is the question no one tells you is coming. And when it arrives, it changes everything.
I didn't retreat from people all at once. It was gradual, the way most real changes are. I started saying no to things I had always said yes to out of obligation. Dinners I didn't want to attend, calls I didn't have the energy for, invitations from people I had drifted from, but kept circling back to out of some old loyalty that had long since outlived its reason. And each time I said no, I expected to feel guilty. Sometimes I did. But more often, I felt something else. Something I didn't have a word for at first. Later, I found the word. The word was clarity. Because solitude, I learned, is not empty. That is the great misunderstanding about it. People who have not chosen it imagine it as gray and hollow, as days stretching out with nothing to fill them. But solitude filled with intention is one of the most alive things I have ever experienced. The morning I sit with my coffee and hear only the birds and the low sound of the house settling, that is nothing. That is a very specific something. It took me 70 years to be able to receive it fully. I still have people I love. I want to be honest about that too. I have a son I talk to every week, a daughter I would do anything for, and a small number of friends I would not trade for anything in the world. But those relationships are different now. They are chosen with full attention. When I am with them, I am completely there, not half present and counting the hours, not performing. There is a quality of presence available to you when you have stopped spending yourself on everything else. And that quality, I think, is one of the quiet gifts of this stage of life, if you are willing to take it. What I could not have understood at 40 or even at 60 is that choosing solitude is not giving up on people. It is giving up on the version of connection that was never really a connection at all. The small talk, the performative socializing, the relationships held together by proximity and habit rather than genuine recognition. Letting those go is not a loss. It only looks like a loss from the outside. What it feels like from the inside is something closer to coming home. And if you are watching this and you are older, and you have felt that same pull toward quiet, toward fewer obligations, toward mornings that are fully yours, I want you to know that there is nothing wrong with you. You are not becoming a hermit. You are not failing at life. You are, possibly, finally learning to live it in a way that actually fits. Not the life that was expected of you, not the social shape you held for decades out of duty and love and good intention, but something truer than that, something smaller in the best possible sense of the word, something that is, at last, entirely your own.